All right, our story till now. We're writing some code where we can hand commands like this, F100, L90, F100, to a function called proc command that takes that string, it turns it into a list with s.split, and then it processes the command where the first element of the list is the letter and the second element of the list is the number. So then we have an if structure based on the first value of it. If it's an F, we do one thing. If it's an L, we do something else. If it's an R, we do a right. So then we execute turtle commands based on the values that were passed to us. So go ahead and pause it, type all this in, and then onward and upward. The next thing we want to do is create a list that has these kind of commands in it. L is equal to empty list. And then L.append F200. L.append right 45. L.append, I'm just making stuff up, F200. L.append, make another right turn, and let's go 360 minus 45 is 315, is it not? Now we have this list, but we need to step through it item by item, calling our proc command function. So for every string in our list, for s in list, process that command. Well, it did something. Maybe I should use smaller numbers rather than 200 and stuff like that. 20. Oh, and I forgot one final draw, just to clinch things. Append, forward, 40, whatever it's going to be. All right. 50. We could write a string that was a series of commands and then process them. CList is equal to forward 100, comma, right 90, comma, forward, and I should be putting spaces here, forward 100, comma, right 90, comma, forward 100, comma. Have we drawn 4 lines yet? Yeah. Right 90, forward 100. All right, that's badly formatted. Perhaps we will work on fixing that rather than me correcting it. What do I mean by that? I have places where commas are followed by spaces and in places where commas are not followed by spaces. So what we should do is we should strip the command of its spaces. But I'm just going to leave it as an exercise. And then so list is equal to clist.strip. Excuse me, not strip. What is our command that breaks things up? Split. But I want it delimited by commas. That way this will be the first item in the list. That'll be the second item in the list. That'll be the third item in the list. Now I can do another for loop. For s in L, process the command S. And it said unrecognized command R90. Yep, that's my fault. I forgot to put a space between the R. Weirdly enough, it seems to be working with the spaces in front of the F, which is really surprising to me. How could that possibly be? That's not a rhetorical question. I'm honestly confused as to how it's accepting these spaces. Let's print S out. Right there. Print S, just to see what it looks like. Yeah, it's working. Let's print the command out up here. I'm going to go back up into our process commands and do print command. Just because I'm real curious, once it extracts it from the list, what it looks like. Well, at some point, oh, I see what's happening. Since our delimiter here is made of spaces, it ignores the leading spaces. What I thought we were going to have to call is strip. Strip removes trailing spaces, and then there's a version of strip which will remove leading spaces as well. So strip will remove spaces from the beginning and the end. I'd rather not rely on the idea that those commands, that the split will remove the spaces for us. So I'm going to explicitly remove the spaces before we do this. S.strip. Then I'm going to take this print statement out. Now that's not really necessary because it is actually working. But if we changed our delimiter to something else other than spaces, I wouldn't want it to be dependent upon that. Alrighty.
I'm getting errors online.
I need to walk around and help everybody, and I've made too much code to put it all on one screen, so let me break this up into two. Sorry that the C list is off the screen, but the rest of it you can see.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Okay, so I want to change my code a little bit. That was a very bad idea what I just did. I actually cut it, broke it. Okay. I want to comment all of these things out so that only my Pentagon code is there. So I'm going to put 3 quotes at the top of all that code, put 3 quotes at the bottom. That's not the only way you can comment code out. You can also highlight it all and choose format, comment out region, and then it puts double hashes in front of everything. But I'm just going to do it with the triple quotes. All right, C list is equal to, I want to do a pentagon, so it's going to be forward 100, and then right. What is 360 divided by 5? 72. Alrighty, right 72. Forward 100. Right 72. Forward 100. Right 72. That's 1, 2, 3 lines. I get bored and I copy and paste. And then that for loop for S and L colon, process that command. I broke it. I forgot to split it. List is equal to C list dot split by your commas. And then do the for loop. So your homework's going to be to modify this a little bit, but I'm not going to tell you how I want it modified until the end of the class, or else y'all will get it done before class is over. So anyways, everybody get this working, or anybody else having typos they need fixed? Alrighty. So, you can assign lists to variables. We've seen that. Numbers is equal to 17, 1, 2, 3. Empty is equal to empty braces. The syntax for accessing the elements of the list is just like accessing the elements of a string. That would get the first of the cheeses list. So you can go up from 0 to n minus 1, where n is the length of the list. Now we've been using ForEach to do this kind of thing. But let's go back and modify our code to actually use an honest to goodness for loop. I'm sorry, I called it ForEach. We're going to use a for loop rather than a for in the list loop. Okay, so we need a counter for I, index counter, in range of the length of the list. And there's no compelling reason to do it this way. S is equal to list at that element, L sub I, and then process that command. Functionally, it's identical. Of course, I should run it before I say that. So what's the difference between these two? Functionally, they're identical. What are we doing here? Why do we use for I in range?
Guaranteed you get all the elements.
Yeah, we're incrementing a counter that starts at 0 and goes up to the length minus 1. And then we use the square brace notation to pull that element out. And if you do it like this, all that happens automatically. You know, we save a little bit of syntax. This is a cleaner syntax to do it that way, especially if I remove that print statement. So just as a silly reminder, if you use -1 as an index, it does what? Gets the last one, and -2 gets 2 over and 3 over, starting from the other end. If you have a list, you can use for variable in variable. And this syntax is great for cheese in cheeses, but I guarantee you that if I come up here and do that, then we're going to wind up typing S's in the wrong place all over the place. And I'm not accusing y'all of doing it. I'll do it, and then you'll copy me. And maybe you'll get it wrong just enough to get it right, but okay. So that's one way to do it, but if you need the index number for some reason, you can. An example of why you might need the index number is, what if you had a list that looked like this? I don't think I actually want to type it, but what if you had a list of numbers that look like this? L is equal to 1 comma 5 comma 7 comma 10 comma 20. And we wanted a program that would print the difference between each one of these, so that when we ran it, it printed 4, because that's the difference between 1 and 5. And what's the difference between 5 and 7? 2. Difference between 7 and 10 is 3. And the difference between 10 and 20 is 10. If we wanted code to do that, that would be just about impossible with a 4x in L kind of syntax. I don't know if that's strictly true, but I'm not coming up with a good way of doing it. We may as well code that. Let's go ahead and go back into our mousy program.
It would be more work than just doing the other I method.
Right, because you're going to have to decide whether you're at the beginning of the list or not.
Yeah.
So instead, let's do this. Wait, we need our new list, sorry. L is equal to, and let's type in some numbers. 1 comma, 5 comma, 7 comma. They don't have to be in ascending order. But if you make them in descending order, they're going to start being negative differences, unless you took the absolute value. So we have these numbers. We could do this 2 ways. One is we could start at element 1, and then if I was equal to 1, we could add I and I minus 1. Or we could start at element 0 and go up to the next to the last element, adding I and I plus 1, so that the final pair, or not adding, but taking the difference between I and I plus 1. So that would be, there, and then when I was at, it would be there, and then I was at, it was there. So we're either going to have to start 1 past the beginning, or we're going to have to end 1 before the end. The way my brain works, it's easier to do 1 past the beginning, because we just do range 1 comma. That tells it to start counting at 1 rather than 0. For I in range, the length of the list, but I forgot to put my 1 comma in front of it. So go back here, and after the word range, but before the word len, there we go. Now I'm going to break it out in the easiest way, not the easiest way, but the most clear way, in my opinion. X is equal to element 0, I, and Y is equal to element at I plus 1. And the difference is equal to X minus Y. And then let's print that difference out. We could shorten that considerably, right? We don't have to assign these temporary variables of X and Y. We could just plug those in right there. But I thought that would make it easier to read. So it ought to print 4, 2, if you use my numbers, 3, and 10. Once it's done drawing its pentagons. Ooh, and it blows up instead. List index out of range. You know what I did? I said I was going to start at 1. I'm not going to talk any further. How do I fix my code? Somebody's going to spot it.
Start at 0.
That would work. Start at 0 and then go out to the length of L minus 1. But if I wanted to start at 1 instead of going I and I plus 1, what should I do?
Do I minus 1 and I.
Right, I minus 1 and I. So I just changed that one, and I changed that one. It's giving us negative values, so I could swap X and Y in my comparison if I cared, or I could take the absolute value. Honestly, I'm surprised it's doing that. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay, so I'm just going to make it difference is equal to Y minus X, just to sate my desire to see them print as positive numbers. All right, now that's not really germane to the idea of the turtle, so we really should have put that in its own code. But it illustrated the point. The point being that there are times when you do want to iterate with a number rather than by the values. A for loop with an empty list never executes the body. That makes sense. If the list is empty, you can't do anything in it. So list operations. You can use the plus sign to concatenate lists. If we were going to go back and we wanted to, this is about where we're going to stop. We could have added things to our C list like this. C list 2 is equal to, forward 10, comma, left 90, comma, forward 10, comma, left 90, whatever. And then we could do C list 3 is equal to C list plus C list 2. That would concatenate those two lists together. Then I could change this to L is equal to C list 3. You don't really need to do this. Hopefully, well, if it worked, I goofed it and I'm not going to bother fixing it. The problem was that list 2 did not end. These lists did not end in a comma. So when it appended them, let's print out what the list looks like. Print C list 3. So your list is cruising along with commas between it, and then all of a sudden, there's our bad data. How could we fix that? We could add a comma between our lists, like this. C list plus a comma plus C list 2. That's kind of neat.
They made a box.
That's more impressive than I thought. Okay, anyways, okay, so the homework is going to be oh, come on. Take our process command code and expand it to support the following commands. I needed to do quote, quote, quote. Now to me, the idea of supporting back is kind of silly because you can always just go forward a negative amount.
I didn't even do that.
But let's do up 0 for the pen, or just up to lift the pen, down to lower the pen, B to begin fill, and E to end fill.
For lifting the pin and lowering the pin, or to lower the pin, is that the one that you need X and Y coordinates for, or?
No, that's if you implement kind of a go-to kind of command. So there is a set X and a set Y, which would be cool enough. X does set X, and Y does set Y. Of course, the more commands to it, the longer your string is to test it. But just to implement that, implement those commands, and then create some kind of string. I don't care what it draws as long as it calls each one of these at least once. So our total language so far will be right means right, left means left, F means forward, and there we go. clean this up. Something more similar to what we had before. This is a question for y'all. Which way do you like handling building these lists? Did you like it when we defined one great big string like that? Or did you like doing l.append and making all your commands and then processing them?
I prefer the
The first method? Yeah.
I prefer my way.
I kinda
With the
Yeah, you had a for loop building
Yeah,
your
with the-
string or whatever.
I
Okay.
kind of prefer a pen, even though it's more typing. That way, the list is more specified.
The list is clear to read, yeah, it's more specific. And if you were going to implement this as reading from a file, you would probably put one command per line.
It's easier to change too.
And
Yeah.
it's also, space in front of this F, space in front of that
Yeah,
F, no
yeah.
space in front of this, it's
Yeah.
very clear.
So, when you implement your test code, I don't care whether you do it like that or like that. Either one works.
Can you go back to the green?
Oops, sorry. Where do I need to go?
Right down there.
Well, wow, I made
Okay.
counters.